All right. So let's start getting into personality a little bit as we begin into this really large unit that was kind of merged together from a couple smaller units. But we're going to begin by talking about some Freudian aspects of personality and how we measure disposition. Okay. So you can check the videos and stuff that are out on here on the note slides or on your own. But we're going to talk about psychoanalysis. Okay. Psychodynamics also. So this is a Freudian way of analyzing personality, okay? And we're all pretty familiar, hopefully, with the name Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud kind of single-handedly popularized the field of psychology, much of which is for this idea of psychoanalysis, as well as some kind of taboo and risque ways of being able to measure certain aspects of personality and so on that gave it that kind of wow factor that brought attention to it. But at the basis, psychoanalysis is really trying to look inward to one's subconscious or unconscious mind as to what it is that they may want and why they behave in certain ways. Okay, and Freud believed that much of this happened when we were sleeping, and our daily routines were really built around us trying to fight against those wants or needs based upon what society is asking us to do. Okay, so the relationship based on trusting relationship between the analyst and the patient is somebody who is giving that clinical psychoanalysis. You've got to trust them because you're going to tell them, oftentimes very deep and possibly dark and personal things. So you're also going to look at material outside of their conscious awareness. So they're going to look for things that, maybe somebody's going to be repeating something, but that repeating of something may stand for or mean something else, right? So, or transferring some of the information onto somebody else, right? So I'm asking this for a friend. Well, the friend's really you, right? That's where that whole idea comes from, is Freudian psychoanalysis. So this is probably the most popular model of Freudian psychoanalysis. So what we're looking at is this iceberg, right? So above the waterline, that is what we would consider our conscious awareness. Okay, so that is our awake, focused awareness on the world around us. And you notice that's a very small portion of this iceberg, but primarily made up of these components, right? You see the bolded, ego and super ego off to the left, where you catch a little bit of that. And then you see at the very bottom, you see the id. So those are the three aspects of our personality that Freud believed were always battling for control of us. Okay. And then you see the further down you go with the pre-conscious material just beneath the surface that we're kind of aware of, but not really. And then our unconscious, everything that's pushed way down, submerged way deep, so nobody can see it, right? These are our darkest, deepest dreams, fantasies, fetishes, angers, resentments, all that kind of stuff. So our ego, as he believed, that was the reality principle, right? That's what I'm living in here. This is how I navigate the world, the norms, the values. I've got to abide by them, your conscious awareness. Your super ego, that sliver to the left there that goes way down below because it has to contain the id, but also to the top, is the social component, right? That's your moral imperatives. That's the good guy. So if we look at this, and I know you've all seen him, and I actually have a cartoon of it in here later, this is kind of a person with the angel on one side, which would be the super ego, the moral imperatives, the always doing good things, the clean conscience. And then the id would be kind of the devil on the other side. That's the pleasure principle, where the primary aspect that goes along with the id is to feel good, to do what you want, to get your way, right? And not really taking into consideration what social norms are, feelings of others, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how Freud places his information as he goes into doing his psychoanalysis. So as he sits down, he starts to read into what people are telling them, dream analysis or talk therapy, whatever, into that id, right? He's trying to look for the things that are being submerged, that are being suppressed, figure out, all right, well, what's really going on here? What's really that person's desires or wants that they're trying to hide from me? So again, here's that little cartoon that you can check out. You can see Homer over there with the same breakdown. Some ways of doing this, right? It's free association and dream analysis. And later on this week, we're going to play some games pertaining to a little bit of this stuff. But free association is allowing the patient to just talk, right? And having a conversation and ask probing questions and ask them to explain and so on. And then looking for patterns, things that may be transferred, all that, in what they're saying to make sense of where the real issues might lie. And then dream analysis, because Freud believed that dreams were kind of a key to unlocking the subconscious. That if we can get in and analyze those dreams and remember them, that we can have a better idea of what's really going on and what people are really believing that they're too afraid in their conscious state to let anybody know about. Okay. You also have heard of this idea of the Freudian slip, hopefully. This is where somebody's talking and maybe says something that they didn't mean to say, but has an alternate meaning that might be, a little vulgar, might be a little taboo, insightful, things like that. And Freud believed what this was when we are either really busy, going too fast, on autopilot, that kind of thing, that our id is always looking for ways to bubble up. So if we're not consciously aware of what we're trying to do and careful with how we do it, then it'll pop in. And those are Freudian slips. So I'll let you take a look at those. They're pretty comical. And here we are. When I made this years ago, back when, now President Biden was Vice President Biden, who knew? Who knew he'd be on here? Okay. We talked about this with our young children, but our developmental stages is what I meant last unit. So here we go. This is Freud's idea, right? That much of the things that he attributed his work to were things like unfulfilled sexual desires or things along those lines. So he took these stages of young children and be able to put them towards the developmental stages of what they're doing, what they're using, and what they're thinking about. And then you see that last column, the adult fixation. So if you are depressed in any of these, if you're not able to accurately or successfully matriculate through these developmental stages, it can lead to issues later on. So if you were doing a psychoanalysis of an older person, then he may draw back to some of these psychosexual developmental stages that may not have been hit to explain your issues with orderliness or messiness or something along those lines. And then finally, defense mechanisms, and we'll take a look at these as well. But these are often used to kind of hide and deflect some of those subconscious issues to protect yourself, right? So repression, regression, displacement, sublimation, reaction, formation, projection, rationalization, to make clear sense in a conscious way of some of those issues that you're having, okay? And we'll practice those with some activities, like I said, later on this week.